So my website goes down, my clients are not being served, and I'm not being fed.
I'm here today with a very special guest, dear to my heart, one of my friends, Abby Rose, who is the spiritual accountant, and she is here to help you create, manage, and protect your wealth. Hell yes to that.
That time you were mentioning of being in the shower, I was losing my absolute mind. You know, I always use the analogy, we can't go over it, can't go around it.
Yeah.
You know, you've actually got to go through it. Business is not always joy, flow, and ease, and you need to be able to navigate when things seriously go wrong. You got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and find the fix.
Cosmic Money, the podcast, the strategy and energetics of seven-figure business. Hello, gorgeous beings. Welcome to today's podcast. I'm your host, as always, Skye Hanley. Hi, how are you? And I'm here today with a very special guest, dear to my heart, one of my friends, Abby Rose, who is the spiritual accountant, and she is here to help you create, manage, and protect your wealth. Hell yes to that. Hello, my love.
Hello, beautiful. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, no brainer to have you here. Like, just in terms of, you know, who you are as a person, how you move through the world, like, you know, the passions that sit on your heart, and obviously the unique magic that you bring in everything that you do. I'm really excited for today's chat, but I have to tell you a little bit of a secret first, Miss
Yes.
Abby, is that there are very few people that I feel like a complete moron when I'm in the presence of. And you're actually one of them because you're so mildly devastated now because you're so brilliant at what it is that you do. And I feel so amazingly clueless, you know, and I both, you know, on one hand, like completely understand the importance of everything that you're out there and how it is that you're helping people. So as I said, I'm so excited for today and the conversation that we're able to open up for others out there. And I find it hilarious that I sometimes feel I have nothing to offer, like because I am. I feel out of the loop in your amazingness and everything that you do. So that's my little side note for you there, my love.
Oh, bless, honey. What you see in me is in you. I think we are definitely, from the moment that we met, we just had this, just this magnetic, you know, anytime I'm around you, it's always a pleasure, and I always feel seen and loved and heard. And yeah, I absolutely love what you bring to this world. And I think you're such an amazing leader and heart-centered. So yeah, sometimes I get the same too, you know. I think when powerful women come together, it's just this beautiful dance of like, okay, you know, we're on the same path, we're sharing the same mission. I truly believe that in our heart. And it's just like, how do we just blow shit up and help people in the best possible way? So I see you doing that too, hun, and I'm just, I'm here for it.
We'll both take the ego pump up. Thank you. So just note to everyone, these, you know, like I wouldn't call it imposter syndrome. I don't quite think I feel as if I am an imposter in any situation by any means, but it just shows you that at all levels of business, you know, and all, you know, across humanity and all the rest of it, we all have these moments, like, and so it's quite funny that we're both sitting here being like, oh gosh, like, you know, how gracious and honored I am to be in your brilliance, you know, and that it has that little wobble effect inside me, which is clearly entirely about me. Look, you actually just brought something up that I find really interesting. You and I were talking about, like, let's dive in. Oh my God, let's dive in. Like, you and I are so different and so similar, and it's so interesting that we both are seeing certain shifts that are happening in the marketplace. And it's, and literally the previous podcast episode to this, you know, our season opener for season 2, I literally spoke about that in its own right. And you and I have just sat here and had this conversation about blowing things up and, you know, and really being both that rebel, that industry disruptor and change maker, because we're seeing, you know, these similar things. I would love to get your perspective on that, as, you know, everyone's used to listening to me talk about this stuff. But yeah, what are you seeing? What sparked it for you?
Yeah. So there's a change in the marketplace, right? And I feel like, business is always evolving. Even as humans, we're always constantly evolving. And I see the things that, used to work in 2020 or even 2022, they just don't fucking work anymore. People are more switched on. People, if you also look at the economic cycles that we're going through, people, their behavior around how they're spending money or how they're just managing their life, even in general, I think a lot of the veil is actually falling down and you can't bullshit through business. I just think that there is a huge calling for this piece around transparency, integrity, delivering on what you say you are going to do. And I see there's a little bit of a crumble happening, especially in the coaching space, because if you aren't those things, you're not going to last. You're not going to, if you can't share. And this is where when I talk about business with people and strategies and models and all of that, this is where I think people actually need to learn the business acumen and skills of how to strategically make those decisions, not just take those cookie cutter watered down versions from other coaches. I call it the MLM coaching, right? It's
oh my God, I say that all the time too. Yes.
Passed down.
Coaching coaches. Exactly.
Yeah. So I feel like, and there's a place for that, right? And it used to work and it made a lot of people really successful. But I think we're actually coming into a time now where energetics play a very pivotal role and the truth of who you are. And it doesn't mean we have to go and blow shit up and like call people out and like throw stones at glass houses, but let's just call a spade a spade. The strategies that were working then, they don't work anymore because bias psychology has changed.
I think that's the difference as well, like in this, and I say this with a lot of love, and I don't mean this across the board. Like you said, I don't actually want to throw stones. But what I've found as somebody who comes with not just experience in business, but yes, experience, but also expertise. Like I learned structured business. I studied my entire existence, like to understand these things and to then see it when it shifts. And what I've noticed over the last while, as you said, there's been a bit of a disparity with integrity and we're not believing the end results and the things that were working. So all of those overnight successes of, the last, let's say 4 years when the marketplace shifted, in one regard, well, it's shifted again. And if we can't see that change, we're then not, keeping up with it. And I think there's a lot of old tactics kind of still being taught. And it's like, no, you've got to be smarter than that. You've got to see the broader picture that things have shifted. And without that broader, I think, scope of knowledge, I've been in business 20 years kind of thing. Like, and so we're used to the shifts and seeing the changes and being able to recognize it in the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, as you touch on with the expertise, this is what I think is going to separate, the people that have that expertise from the people that are just sort of doing this copycatting, and this is where even myself, my whole career, working in business, working in accounting, working in finance, knowing how to look at the markets, look at financial trends, understand cycles of business, cycles of the economy. So, having that ability. Absolutely.
Like the human aspect. Like, yes.
So I think that it's a very important piece for people to consider. And I think this is why it's really great to then teach people how to recognize these things and then how to respond to that. Because, if you just, buy into that cookie cutter, what happens when things shift? You're going to be searching from a cookie cutter from someone else, and that's going to be very costly. And this is why I say, the best business coach you'll ever have is actually yourself. But it's just honing.
And second best is then Skye Hanley, but that's fine. Yes.
Absolutely. But it's teaching. Yeah, teaching them how to access that, right? So that they can view the markets. You're teaching people the acumen to be able to do
Mm,
that. And I think that's
yeah.
where, a lot of people do fall short. So yeah, the market's
And I,
definitely shifting.
I'm all for like we do a lot of like done for you and like huge amounts of hand holding and stuff like that in what we do. But I'm also like really big and sounds like you're the same on the how to and the when to and the why to, and I think I even learnt this. This is going to sound so silly. I learnt this maybe back in probably hospitality days where it's like I could teach like I could teach a new team member like how to do something, but if I also teach them like why we do it that way, then they have that greater piece of understanding. And it's like, oh, okay. And now they can take that forward themselves to be able to do, a more elevated job on other things with the understanding of why it's like that, not just being dictated to like, here, do this, cookie cutter, one size fits all, away you go.
Yeah, but I think too, in those early stages, right, of business, you do need
Yes.
those done for you. There's a lot of
100%.
support that's required because it's like learning a new skill. It's not like you can just
Yeah.
start a business and away off you go. I think it takes time to learn, and some of the things that I'm helping my clients with, it's not just because I've learned a simple strategy out of a textbook or through my degree. This is years of experience and seeing
Yeah.
what works, what doesn't work, and making those mistakes, and sometimes you will fall over and fuck it up, but then you
Mm,
learn from that and you do it differently, and knowing how to move all of those pieces. So yeah, that support and that done for you in the beginning stages, I think, can be really helpful because it can actually expedite someone's progress and their success because
mm.
you've got someone who's got that experience that's then assisting you. So yeah, it
Yeah.
all comes, I think, hand in hand. But yeah, there's definitely a different way now.
Definitely. You actually just reminded me of something amongst what you were saying. You are. I'm going to throw you under the bus here. You're actually an example of a story that I tell, and it only just kind of occurred to me that it's your story that I do actually often share. And I say, some of my most amazing next level business friends. I'm very open to the fact that business isn't always fucking seamless and beautiful roses and all perfection and stuff like that, and that throughout business, like of course resilience, and of course picking our crown and dusting that motherfucker off and putting it back on our head, and but I remember telling the story of how when your website went down, and I think you told me that you recall crying in the shower, and at the same time you were fucking actioning, and I loved that, just in terms of like business, like exactly business resilience and what it actually takes sometimes to be able to just be like, this is fucked and everything's fucked and I'm having a meltdown and I'm fucking being badass as shit because this train's got to get back on the tracks. Talk to us about
Absolutely.
that and your experience. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I totally forgot that even happened. Yeah, and
I know.
that can
I'm
be
sorry. I just
diabolical.
realized it's you.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is some of that acumen, right? And
Yes.
no offense to some of the, I guess, conscious community or spiritual community, because there was such a heavy emphasis on like, I need to be in my genius zone. Everything is effortless and flowy, and
Yes.
yes. I definitely do
And
spend predominantly a lot of time in joy and flow and ease. However,
yeah.
business is not always joy, flow, and ease, and you need to be able to navigate when things seriously go wrong. And there's in the roads, especially when you're growing. And my website, it went down, and it was diabolical because a lot of people
Mm,
rely on my website for information, for education, for support. People have got access to that. Then I also rely on the website for
yeah.
revenue, right? So my website goes down, my clients are not being served, and I'm not being fed. So
Mm,
it was pretty diabolical. And I remember that time you were mentioning of being in the shower, I was losing my absolute mind because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then I was doing all the spiritual, like, what is it within me? And,
Yes.
all
What
the
does it all
things.
mean?
What does it
Yeah.
all mean? And
What's the
sometimes,
lesson? No,
sometimes the
sometimes it's
lesson
just
is
fucked.
just get shit done,
Yeah.
you got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and find the fix. It's not going to
Yeah.
fix itself. At the end of the day, you're the crux of your business. You're the make or break.
Mm.
And if something does fall down, you've got to fix it. You actually owe it to yourself, and you owe it to your community to do that. So, I
And that's
think,
why I tell the story. Like it comes
mm,
from that place of like permission slip, and again, I think it's part of what is shifting within the marketplace is the we seem to be Abby Rose. We're using rose a lot today. The rose-colored glasses,
yeah,
are falling away. Like you
mhm,
said, this flow and this ease, and it's we'll just manifest it or float in the window one day, and it's like, oh my gosh, like it gets to be like that. You get freedom, you get choice, you get lifestyle, and sometimes these things are going to happen, and the actual like I always think it's like the universe going like, how fucking badly do you really want it? Because
yeah,
generally the challenges don't get easier, they get harder. And we think that, oh, well, if I'm at this financial level, I'm at that financial level, everything is going to be okay. And it's like, well, no, at that financial level, you're losing a $200,000 deal, or something
mhm,
like that. Do you think that
yeah,
that's easier, or that we've just journeyed it more often, which
yeah.
brings that experience as well to the piece, to be able to just have to go, yeah, move forward.
Notice like when you go through these things like a website crashes, or you might lose a staff member or lose that deal, or something diabolical. I always find when something diabolical happens, there is like an energetic signature to that, because what it's actually doing is it's calling you into the value, or the, I guess, the skill, or the just the anchoring of something new that hadn't existed previous to that. And I find that when you actually, I always use the analogy, we can't go over it, can't go around it. You've actually got to go through it. And going through that means going through an emotional cycle with it as well. So we can't make business decisions in the height of emotion. So you've actually also got to regulate yourself. And it's like that infinity, life will ebb and flow, and we're that center point, right? So when these diabolical things happen, I feel like universe is calling us into these aspects of ourselves that are greater than it was before. And that's what actually drives. And then you notice after the fact, you're like, holy shit, now I see how that actually had to happen, because this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And now look, we've just expanded our capacity. So,
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's what I love that you said, we've got to go yeah, you've got to go with it, not kind of fight against it. And I think that that's where a lot of the, I guess the angst, in business and some resentment can build. And I always discuss that it's like all of the firsts, like the first, anytime you have a first in business, it's like the first time somebody ghosts you, or the first time, like a deal falls through, or the first time you lose a team member, or the first time, like, the firsts are always, the toughest, but we have a choice where it's like, well, we can learn from that first. And I think, at the beginning end of business, ghosting is probably a really easy kind of one to utilize, right? Because it's never just one person that ghosts you. There's always like, you're always getting ghosted on and off all the time. That's just business. And so we can either learn from that first time and be like, okay, or we can fucking snowball that first time and make every other time like, a fucking trauma response, of our own worthiness and all the different things. And it's like, oh, can we just learn and allow it to drop away, and position it in a way that absolutely serves us and our business and our actions and our choices, like moving forward, like, far more. Yeah. Um, So give me some rundown, or rather give everybody else a bit of a rundown on like how it is that you've ended up as this amazing, brilliant sparkle human that you are, and everything that you do now for, for business, for humans, for, for finances, for wealth, for all the pieces, that make up Abby Rose.
I think the biggest, right? So running business for a very long time. I started in 2008, had a huge diabolical ego death, spiritual awakening, right? And then that's when the spiritual accountant was born. And then that was an evolution. And I think looking back now, I see what, how every piece to the puzzle was such an important component. But I always felt like I was successful in business, or I always felt like, money, client, it was easy for me to build business. But the success that I had, I kind of limited myself. I had this, my own worthy piece of, as an accountant, I could help other people build wealth and build success. But then when it come to myself, I fell short. So as I worked through that, there was this beautiful opening of me then applying my knowledge to myself and to my own business, and actually being okay with that, and knowing that I was deserving, and knowing that I actually wanted to help people in a much deeper way. And then I formulated the financial sovereignty path, which naturally evolved over a space of a couple of years. And this is where I think the ease and the flow does come into it, is like when you create something based on what people actually want, and you as a business start responding to their wants and their desires, and give them those tangible solutions to get there, I think that's when you can really build more wealth and success for yourself. So I just went on this beautiful journey, and you could see it. Like, I didn't try and create the ideal product, or the ideal package or offering. And I wasn't sitting like in a business strategy meeting trying to formulate it. It was just something that naturally grew over time. And then, obviously, creating that passive revenue and that passive income. So then you can divert that into other projects. So I think, my main focus over the last 5 years has been the sovereign space, and really educating people around finances, educating them around how to build wealth and how to protect it, and creating this free state economy, because of the impact that we can have as business owners. And when we sit in that impact, we actually benefit more. So
Explain that. So for like this is when we start to get into that realm where I'm like, you're amazing and what the hell are you talking about, and like, and I get it, I do get it. So explain, like, what do you mean by like free state economy? Because those are probably words that people are like, it all sounds really interesting, what does it all mean, like, and how does that connect back to like any individual business, family, whatever that might be.
right. So the free state economy is like free trade. So it's trading products and service freely without governmental controls, right? So the government can't license you, register you, tax you, govern you, mandate you. It's a place where, under international law, we as humans, the most valuable resource is our human energy, and it's what we do with that human energy and how we're remunerated for that we get to choose. And nowadays, it's so ridiculous. There's heaps of poems and posts about how many different taxes there are, and fees, levies, licenses, restrictions, and it's like, you even look at like the agricultural industry, for instance, they've just brought out laws where they can't share resources. And then, every industry has its own limitations, and the controls that are, I guess, prohibiting us from being able to do the things that community actually needs. So by move yeah, community. Yeah. So by moving into the free trade economy, you're kind of creating sovereignty. You're not taxed, you're not governed, you're not restricted, and we can then provide these services, whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's resources, that aren't don't have those limitations imposed. So it's a pretty powerful movement. But yeah, it's slowly.
Yeah. And so for anyone who is listening to this kind of a thing for the first time and has just heard that, like, wait, is what you're telling me I have some choice, I have choice around taxes, I have choice to subscribe to the mainstream system or to exit it, or whatever the choice may be. What would you kind of say to them? Because I know this stuff is really like shocking, sometimes, like, we're very indoctrinated into the way things are, that it's so hard for us to believe something could sit outside of that is actually potentially true and legal, and we're able, and that there is a decision that can be made. Yeah, what would you say to people?
Yeah, because the indoctrination is so heavy around this. It's like, if I don't pay tax, I go to jail. If I don't get my license, I go to jail. If I, and it's heavily ingrained, and that's from generations, right? And I think this, I guess, the simplest, most gentle way to put it is voluntary, right? Trade and commerce, it's all trade and commerce, and it all starts from birth right through till death. We are the value. We are the epitome of the most, yeah, valuable resource on the planet. So it's how you're trading your resources, and how you're choosing.
Yes. Explain that in a tangible fashion, because I love that it sounds, because we go, you, the human, are the most valuable resource, like, and human energy, but you actually mean it, not just in the energetic sense of it, but actually in the tangible, like, measurable sense of it. And I think that I would hate people to misunderstand that we're not just talking about you, the beautiful spirit being that's just floating through this time in reality, and like that. It's like, no, actually, like, yeah.
Yes, actually, you have a value, and that value is $231 million.
There's a dollar amount, you guys. Like, it's crazy.
There's an actual dollar amount. That is your current value. That is the asset that you hold, which is attached to the World Bank and what have you. And basically, through the public sector, everything that you do, all of the agreements, all of the services, whether it's Medicare, whether it's tax, whether it's education, HEX, whether it's banking, everything you do, and those agreements are created for profit, right? So who profits? Not us. So we grow up to believe that we trade our time and our energy for a dollar amount. And that's where some of the unlearning happens. And your energy and what you can put out into this world has a higher value. Actually, it's infinite. You can do whatever you want to do. You can create whatever you want to create, and it's a process of learning how to tap into that so you can create what you want to create in this world, and then receive financially for it in abundance. So the thing is, it is very intricate in figuring out what those things are. But what I see is when people do make that transition, and they're moving away from the 9 to 5 job, moving more into the freelancing space, or the entrepreneurial space, or self-employed space, we start looking at money differently and how we're earning the money differently. So yeah, it's a big shift. But yeah, ultimately, we have the capacity and the ability to create a lot more wealth, by being a service to humanity.
And so for anybody who is like I seem to be thinking about the first timers. So the first timers who are soaking this in again, what is their next best right move, to start to explore this? If they're sort of sitting there going, what is this? And this is interesting to me, and like, new, different. Oh my goodness, awakening. What's the next best step for them to go and start to educate themselves and and understand more about this kind of free economy type thing?
Yeah, so there is some information that you can find on the internet. I do have a couple of YouTubes that I send people to for the newbies. I guess the first thing is learning about the straw man because that's where it all starts. At birth, our registration of birth, it was actually copyright infringement, intellectual property, and that's the first financial instrument that was created. So then we use that birth certificate and bind ourselves in these agreements. So the straw man is really the first place to start to learn about that. It is such a huge rabbit hole though. And, there are a lot of different things that you can find online. And I guess for me personally, I learned about this when I went through my own, I guess, awakening and I was going through bankruptcy. And I decided to bankrupt myself because I was like, hey, I'm an accountant, I'm smart enough, I can do it. And as I was reading the form, my brain started ticking over and it said, remove, it was removing me as trustee and putting someone else in place. And that's when I was like, hang on a second, trustee, that means there's some kind of trust. Like, what is this trust? So that's when I found out about the straw man, and that's probably the best place to start because that's where it starts and that's also where it finishes. So there are a lot of groups that I guess educate people that the straw man is bad and you have to reject it, or we have to try and prove that we're living and this and that. And that's a kind of fight energy that I don't really subscribe to. I see the straw man as just like, imagine 6-year-old little Abby. She had no idea, neither did her parents. We just ended up in this scenario, and now adult Abby is saying to 6-year-old Abby, thank you. I appreciate you. You've been here all along. I'm not going to reject you. I now know of your existence. So moving forward, I'm just going to choose how I want to navigate through life with or without you. And this is I guess the empowerment piece, because we learn that we're not the straw man, we're actually the crown, right? And we are the ultimate power, we are the ultimate resource and the most valuable asset, and we get to govern accordingly. So um, it is a huge, huge, huge undertaking to learn, and that's why I provide the education pieces around it for those that want it.
So then who is this for and who is this not for? Like going into this with that open mind and, to learn and, and I again, I say this with no offense at all. I say this from a place of I've watched a lot of horror movies. And so the idea of this thing called the straw man and the this and that, and I'm like, my conspiracy brain just goes wild and whatever, and so you would want to enter this type of a opening, awakening experience, from that open minded place, not from fear, not from scarcity, not from whatever. Yeah. What would you say?
Yeah, but obviously there is a lot of that comes up because this challenges everything that everyone has known previous. And it's interesting because I've been running these sessions for 3 years. I've done 78 sessions. I think over 2,000 attendees over the last relentlessly fortnightly for the last 3 years, and literally watching the light bulbs go off, but then also watching all of the fear come up as well because of what we have been, taught from the beginning. So I think the biggest thing is I always say to people, tell anybody to, and there is no judgment. There is no right or wrong way to do business. It's either you're in the public sector and happy days, digital services, or you're in the private sector and you're pioneering, right? So the people that move into the private are the people that are pioneering new ways. So the people that are about how our humanity is going to evolve, people who are passionate about changing the education system, changing the healthcare system, changing the way we do things at the very level of like changing the fabric of our economy, because what's currently in place not working. There's sickness, there's disease, there's people, it's the powers that be profit off of these things. So this path is for those who feel a deep calling to be part of that change and part of the future generation. So I do totally, wholly, and solely respect people who come into my space and they're like, Abby, actually, this is too much for me. This is not my path. I just, this is the direction I want to go. And I'm all for it. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I just think that there is a bit of a divide happening, and there's like the old way of doing business and then the new way of doing business. And this is another thing. I see a lot of coaches, they're like 5D business, 5D business, and it's great, but let's tangibly explain what 5D business is, because 3D business is the old way and 5D is the new way, but it encompasses so much more than, the spiritual element. It's like how you're leading, what changes, what impacts are you providing, and what are it's like it's literally changing how we run our businesses as well. And this is part of it too, like moving out into the private, I think is very much anchoring that 5D business and being part of that humanity's evolution.
I love that distinction that you've just put in there, because it's something I speak to as well myself, that yes, there's a lot of rah 5D business and all these kinds of things, and I find that it can go to a place where it's then not grounded, and again, I say this with love, but it's like it's not then grounded in reality, because at the end of the day we are still a 3D being, like we're a 5, we're a multi-dimensional being having a 3D experience, and we chose to come here and we chose to be here at this time and live in, these are my beliefs, living this excuse me, this movement and all the rest of it. And so I think negating everything that, that we are as a fleshy mess of a human being, to be like, no, I'm living in 5D and it's all 5D business and we'll just create it in the, in the quantum outside of the matrix and and then it'll just be, I'm like, yes-ish, and like,
We're human and we're in the matrix. We're in it.
yes, you've got to play the 3D game too. Like, that's again, this podcast, like the strategy and energetics of seven-figure business. It's both sides, very much so, or that's what I believe anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, wholeheartedly. And I feel like the best way I can explain it is say, excuse me, 3D is like people that go into business for profit. They just want to make money. They don't care how. They'll sell whatever they need to, however they need to, for the sake of making money. But a 5D business, people are in business for a very different reason. They're in business for a greater purpose because they see something better for humanity, and it goes beyond the eye, and it goes beyond the what we receive. And it's funny because it's like when you step into that, you actually receive, and but it can't be what leads it, so there is that undercurrent of more that is required. So, a lot of people do step into business because they just want to make more money, and that's okay too. The price of living is going through the roof, and we all play a beautiful role, but I definitely do see this new way has a deeper purpose behind it.
And so, what is your, like, if you had to explain it in a couple of key sentences, then what is your greater mission? Like, I wholly agree with you. Like, and you and I know this, that I believe there is us centric business, there is other person centric business, and there is mission centric business, and there is no judgment. Even for me, my mission came along like the actual lightning bolt to the head. Came probably, God, like 15 years into business or something like that. And the last 5 years, I'm like, I know what the fuck it is. Like, and it is this thing, and that is very clear. And here I am, and all the pieces. So for you, what is that? What is your North Star? Holy fuck, like, yeah, legacy of life.
I guess you could say my little tagline is like creating a world of liberated prosperity. But if we break that down a little bit, what is that? And I guess this is where we do get a little bit woo woo. There's been a lot of tangible things that I've provided in my business, in the community, and I feel like it's guided by beings much powerful and much greater than us. And I've had these experiences where I've actually, connected and be like handed that mission and legacy, and it's like, tick, yes, this is it, irrefutable. And the meaning behind it is an advanced civilization doesn't require currency. And some people call me crazy, and I can completely understand why, because how the fuck would we survive without currency? But then as I research and I go into currency and how it's created and who created it and all of these things, imagine what a world would be like if we were an advanced civilization without currency, and everyone was equal, everyone had all of their needs totally provided for, and then we operated as like this centric of unified economy that's just, I can't even put that into context. It feels big and call me crazy. However, it might not happen in my lifetime, but someone has to hold that vision. And I think if just by holding the energy and the frequency of that vision, that's just what I'm working towards, helping us create a better world for the future generations.
It's humbling too, because I say this all the time. I joke about my own ego, and like those kinds of things, and I have a very healthy ego, and but it is very humbling, in the presence of your mission. My mission is to unlock greater human potential, to bring about a mass awakening of sevens. And sevens, in my view, like are the people who are exactly world changers. Like, they are spiritual and strategic. It's like, the beautiful balance of all of these things. And so, I know and am humbled enough in the presence of my own mission to know that it's probably not going to happen in my lifetime. I'd love it to. However, like, it's a piece to the puzzle, and it's like doing what it is that you can do right now for that greater mission, that purpose, to start the, like, that snowball effect, towards that thing, and I love your mission, because the Star Trek nerd in me that is like, yes, like, space exploration, and like, going out there and no currency, and like, meeting all the aliens and stuff like that, just froths over everything that you're about. um but that's how I, like, ground myself and my own being and my own ego, humbled in that presence of my own mission as well.
Oh, me too. Like, I love the energy of that. And also sometimes I am being asked to just come back to earth and show up for what's needed in the now for that, because you can get lost in it, and we do need that humbling and to realize that you might not see the impact of your actions immediately, but as long as you're consistently putting in that action towards that greater goal, that we're evolving no matter what. And I don't know how fast it is or how quick it's going to happen, and I don't need to know, but it's just, yeah, it's like that devoting to it, but then realizing too that we don't have to be the one most significant thing that changes the very fabric of everything.
You actually bring me back to something I was thinking about before that you were actually already speaking to. And one of the reasons I think that you have such amazing success, in the things that you are doing, is because you have really truly created a unique movement. And I'm certain that I would have mentioned this before, possibly in a podcast with one of our friends, Natalie Patterson, because she also has created a movement. And really, like, it's interesting. The strategic human in me understands the significance of being able to create that movement, that thing that is actually somehow greater than ourself, that is based around an idea or an ideal, that people can get behind. And because of that, it's like a black hole. It sucks in more people, who are like, oh my gosh, I can totally get, behind that thing. What is your experience? I understand it, as I said, strategically, and I understand the importance of that. And I also know that I would not say that I have created that yet within my own reality. And that is fine, in relation to the thing that I do, which is business mentoring and whatever. However, the two of you in particular, I would say, definitely have done that by by default or by, alignment and intention. What's your experience being on that side of it, and creating such a unique piece?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Good question. I think that I did set out to do that. I think that starting through 10 years in accounting and learning, all of the indoctrinated ways, and then having that being the flip side of the coin, it was like it chose me. I didn't choose it. And then when I was searching for solutions, nobody gave me that. And I went down a huge path of learning and being and going. And honestly, I look back and I just think it fucking happened by accident. For me, I didn't choose it. And but the one thing that has remained constant from the get-go, and I could even relate this to Natalie. I fucking love her. I love how much her energy just ripples through so many people. It's such a dynamic force. And the thing that I find is it is consistent in both spaces is truth. And I talk about this a lot because that truth actually holds a high vibration than love. And when you can be in the ultimate truth of your existence and be, I guess, driven, this knowing of this truth and just wanting others to have that at their fingertips, then this is, I guess it comes with the ideologies and the beliefs that goes with it. And it's like, what is that truth that is so absolute? And it's not just absolute in you, but everyone else. And then how can you just be the epitome of that truth, or the permission piece for that truth? And it's giving other people the permission and go, hey, look, this didn't work. It's fucked. I found out this is what actually works and this is what's true for me. It might not be true for you, and that's okay, but it is going to be true for others. And I've walked the path. I invite you to join me on this journey. And I think that's where, people feel this sense of belonging then, because they've got someone that not necessarily like, I guess people would pedestal sometimes. Like I literally went to breakfast yesterday. Everyone knew me at the table, and that was nice. It was like, oh, awesome. And sometimes I even get intimidated by that because I'm like, holy shit, what's I mean, everything that I look is but it's just it's this thing of you just care so much about other people having this truth and wanting to be that guiding light to show them, another way, and then people that. But yeah, I really like to empower people to make their own decisions for themselves. And this is what it's all about. So being that permission piece and just anchoring, that truth.
And so that kind of leads on to my next question anyway. And I wonder if it's a similar answer that I always sort of say if there was one thing on this planet I could just grab everybody and shake them wildly and scream in their face and be like, like what would that one thing be for you? Like, what do you want everyone to know and to understand, that if you could just grab them and be like, oh, this one thing, what is that?
I guess the biggest thing is like you have a choice, right? And it's that journey from compliant to non-compliant, or it's not necessarily non-compliant, but it's like I see that, I used to say, throughout the COVID nonsense, I used to say the real pandemic is compliance. And that is so true. And it doesn't matter whether it's for that or, for other things. It's like it's a dumbing down of ourselves just to make good or to make peace or because it's easy. I think that if I could just grab everyone and shake them and say, you do not have to comply, you have a choice. And, you have a choice how you want to be educated. You have a choice on how you want to live your life. You have a choice on how you want to maintain your health. You have a choice in your relationships. You have a choice in your financial world. It's not singular. It's not just one area. It's actually everywhere. We have a fucking choice. People need to wake up and start making different decisions. It's as simple as that, because the decisions we've been making until this point have not got us where we want to be. So we have to start making different decisions.
It's such a powerful, like, how many words is it? You have a choice, the most powerful 4 words, right? Like that there could be. Yeah, you have a choice. And I think, to bring back to another point we were just speaking about, like, I both love the energy of like, you have this choice, you have this choice, but also, the discernment to then allow people to make that choice. And I think that sometimes we get caught up in the, my way, my map, or even the 5D, side of things. We can get all very up in our 5D and be like, oh, but, they haven't come with us or they made a different decision. I'm all for people making empowered decisions with all the information at hand. If they have all of the information at hand and they make whatever decision they want to make, awesome, great, love that. Like there is no judgment. Like, and I feel that that's how it should be, because why, part of my probably one thing I would grab and shake, people is really about like taking the 10% off, which is like take the 10% off the top, take the 10% of judgment, take the 10% of emotionality, take the 10% of, us versus them or maps or 5D, 3D or whatever. Just take the additional off the top, and just be, and that it's okay. But as long as, people are making those decisions from that informed place, it's like, awesome, great, no worries. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I feel kind of like job done, because my thing is to share that information. You know, what happens for someone after they receive that information? Yeah, I totally let go. You know, I always say I will walk beside anybody who wants to pay their own salvation. I will be there to support and help and nurture and cheer you on. But if you receive that information and you decide, you know, that's not the path for you, then also good. That is beautiful. If that's where you want to be, it is so perfect. There is zero judgment whatsoever, because I think it, you know, not everything is for everyone. Everyone has different ways. And this is where, you know, it's not cookie cutter. There is no one way. There's no one way to evolve. There is no one way to run a business. There is no one way. There's many ways. And I think the journey can actually be beautiful when people just let go and be okay with following your own journey, following your own path, and finding what resonates. You know, something might resonate and then it might not resonate, and that's okay too. You know, that I think we start to judge and I guess blame or compare that this is what creates the distortion. And I think we can all live in harmony in different areas without that.
So my final question for you then, Miss Abby Rose, would be if what, you know, in relation to the strategy and energetics of seven-figure business, you know, what is the major piece of advice that you would like to pass on? You've given us so many singular gold, you know, nuggets amongst all of this anyway, like, but specifically for our Cosmic Money listeners, yeah, strategy and energetics of seven-figure business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, it's mission, it's legacy. I think when you anchor your soul's blueprint of that legacy that you're here to do for people, that can really unlock unlimited potential in your business. And this is where I love helping people discover what that is. And then energetically, when you hold that vision, you know, you're working with very strong forces to bring that to our planet. So yeah, I think that for me was massive game changer. But in saying that, energetically, you have to fucking prepare yourself for that, because when you do step into it, you are literally going to be releasing layers upon layers upon layers. You know, so being okay with moving through your own shit, being okay with your ego, being okay with the wounds in you, being okay with sometimes you're going to fuck up a decision, you know, that's part of it. Because when you step into that legacy and devote to your vision and step into that visionary version of you, it is a bit of an unbecoming. So it's just, you know, holding yourself through that journey. I think this can be one of the greatest journeys, and it's definitely rewarding. And that's why, you know, I love helping people in that journey, because I see what is created because of it, and it's just it's amazing.
Miss Abby Rose, I love you. And I love your brilliance and your uniqueness and the movement you've created. And you blow my brain every time I speak to you. Yeah, with, you know, with everything that you're creating, and how you serve, you know, it sounds so like, it sounds kind of wanky, but it's like how you're serving humanity. But I actually mean that in a beautifully grounded way. Like, it is so true and it is so needed. And you are out there living every piece of advice that you just said in relation to mission and, you know, and showing up and being clunky and beautiful as fuck as well, along the way. If people want to connect with you and, you know, and learn more and start to educate themselves, what are the best ways that they can find you?
Yeah, sure. You can head over to, I've got a private Facebook group. It's called Untethered. That's where you'll find me.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you again, Miss Abby Rose. As I said, it's been an amazing to have you here as our guest.
Oh, thank you so much, Sky. I just love our chats and I'm so grateful for you having me on today. I think I could literally just talk all day probably. But yeah, it's been
Yeah, yeah. I think we need you back. Yeah.